All right. Welcome back to Alternative Discussion West. This is your host, Ryan Banks. I want to thank you all for tuning in again. It's really exciting to watch our numbers grow and get feedback from all of our listeners. We appreciate you listening. I want to welcome my guest today, a friend of mine for about the last 10 years, Mr. Aaron Bruski. How you doing, Aaron?
Good. Hello, Ryan. Good to be here.
Welcome to the Hood, man. We're really happy to have you here. You guys might know Aaron from Dearly Divided, his punk band for the last 3 or 4 years out here in the Bay Area, and also from his involvement in the Fat Wreck documentary. We're going to get into talking all about that here in a bit. Let's start with where you started. Growing up, born in Alpena, Michigan.
Yes, sir.
So what's life like there?
Well, you've got a kind of a country bumpkin setup. Alpena is, if you're from Michigan, you hold your hand up and you point at your palm. Alpena is probably about 90 miles south of the Mackinac Bridge that separates the two peninsulas of the state. It's also subsequently about 4 to 5 hours away from anything that you would consider a metropolis.
So it is the middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowhere. You get exposed to punk rock music, around freshman year of high school. And if I wanted to go see a show, it was about a 5-hour trip down to Detroit to St. Andrews. And that's how you were going to see anything.
That was the closest you were going to get to anything anyone had heard of.
If it wasn't a county fair, you know what I mean? That was it. That was totally it.
Possibly a tribute band at the county fair.
Yes.
That was as close as you were getting to live music.
Hearing cover songs of the same music you listen to on the radio when you're driving in your car. It just wasn't very...
So life is quiet there. You grow up through junior high and high school there in Alpena.
Yep.
What high school is that at?
I went to Alpena High School. And pretty cool. I mean, I was super, super lucky that I feel like, growing up in that area, you've got a lot of, there are things you're just supposed to be into. You're supposed to be into hunting. You're supposed to be into, a lot of the outdoor stuff. You're supposed to be a good mechanic and be able to work on your vehicle. And there was just a lot of kind of norms that I didn't necessarily fit into those. I wanted to play music and I was obsessed with skateboarding.
And skateboarding for you starts early on?
Yeah, it was,
junior high.
I would think maybe the end of grade school, maybe like 5th grade, 6th grade. I saw Back to the Future, and you think about like that Discovery story. Like I wish it was like, Christian Hosoi, and I saw Back to the Future, and the first movie, Marty McFly rolls up to the Doc's office or his studio or lab or whatever, and he pops his skateboard up and caught it. I just thought that was the coolest thing that I had ever seen.
And you had to imitate that.
Yeah, and it was like, little did I know that, that's your first trick. And it was like, okay, well, I had seen, there's a Police Academy movie where the guys were being chased and they were ollieing stuff. And, again, no skate videos yet, but just motion pictures. And that was, okay, well, let me try to jump this thing. How can I make a jump over something?
So your first exposure is late 80s movies.
Yep.
And you see the skateboard. So you pick that up. So you end up taking the different route than what was norm or socially norm in Michigan, and go towards the counterculture of skateboarding and also of music.
Yep.
When do you start playing music? Is that in high school?
Yeah, I was really, really lucky that like we had like a bunch of people in our little clique that just, I don't know if it was from their parents being, my dad's a drummer as well too, so I there was part of me that had a drive to want to replicate what he was doing, but like 7th, 8th grade, there were just a bunch of us. Like I made my dad get me a drum set because he was sick of, my dad's right-handed and I play left, and he was sick of me setting his up backwards. I had a few different friends that, same boat. One guy was messing around with the bass and one guy was messing around with guitar stuff. And we just started, I remember getting in a room with my buddies and, this is real punk exposure. Like you're playing, let's try that Lenny Kravitz song that we just heard, or I have the CD to Stairway to Heaven, so let's fast forward 3 minutes until the drums actually start and play it from there.
The rock starts.
Yeah, let's play some Helmet. It was just a bunch of guys messing around. There wasn't a show yet, but that was the earliest inception of just for me playing.
Now, what kind of music did your dad play?
My dad was the quintessential like classic rock, cover band drummer. When he was a kid in high school, that was, be in a band that could play at the bar and play all the songs everyone was listening to on the radio. That was,
and he could take any request.
Exactly. That was the coolest.
Knew how to keep time.
And my dad had my dad was a little over the top. It looked like a spaceship when I was a kid. I mean, just the 2 kick drums and roto toms.
It was the Neil Peart kit.
Yes, it was completely over the top, and I can't imagine him hauling those to all those bars.
Small dive bars in the middle of Michigan.
But that was his. I remember very early on watching him do that, and it's a lot of people watch their dad do something, and you're like, he's doing it, and I want to do that because he's the coolest guy.
Yeah, he's cool. So he's doing this.
Early on, it felt like something I really, really wanted to do.
Well, it's really cool to have that exposure early on, and to have, parents that are into music. So that, obviously got you your start in that. Now, when does skateboarding get more serious? Is that in high school where you're skating everywhere? And when do you start doing the videos?
Well, I always skateboarding for me. I feel like once, by 8th grade, it wasn't going anywhere. I mean, it was literally, I remember walking around to my classes, and I had a California Skate Express and a Cheap Skates catalog. And when you're in Michigan, you got to wait 10 days for that stuff to show up. You want to get a cool shirt that everyone else doesn't have. It's this big wait. I would carry that stuff around like my Bible and circle the boards and stuff. And I think the skateboarding and kind of aggressive music, and I also had this love of, I was always really stoked with behind the scenes and just production of movies or of commercials
or the skate magazines.
Yeah, I started getting exposed to skate videos, and I was always stoked about anytime you'd see a shot of what camera they actually used to shoot that stuff. I was always really kind of tech obsessed, and I think really early on I would make my own skate videos, using a couple of different VCRs and just cobbling together what footage that you had. And then adding some random clip from a movie or something.
And that's just footage of your friends around town.
Yep.
At the high school.
Yep.
Wherever you guys could bust out.
My dad worked at an appliance store and got me, it was a high, I don't know if it was high 8 maybe it was just 8mm, but it was the little video cassette recorder. It wasn't digital. It shot on a little smaller tape, but it's kind of the first, first exposure to having something where you could shoot and cut stuff. And I love doing it.
And that's where the videos started.
Yep.
Was at that point. So you're doing editing VCR to VCR. I mean, our younger listeners may not even know what that entails. And I remember making, cassette mixtapes where you would do them tape to tape, record from the radio, and then make your own edit, and all of it had the static from the radio and all that, inside your songs. But yeah, that is the old school way of editing. So you end up getting involved in making these skate tapes. And these are just, is there pros in your town? Is there guys that even know how to go about that in your town?
There was, everything was word of mouth at the time. There's no digital anything, and nobody has phones everywhere at this point. So, I'm a super young kid that, at the point when I was first starting to really skateboard a ton, you're still not exactly that old enough to be walking around all the time and meeting folks, older folks, or going to functions. I was a little kid. My folks were keeping me, pretty close to the reservation when I wasn't going to school. So I would hear legends of, there was a guy named Dave Hartman that basically he could ollie over a garbage can, and he's got a sponsorship from H Street.
And he was a local guy.
And
that was hearing a myth.
Yeah.
When you heard about this
when
guy.
I finally met him, the truth of the myth was pretty much, the guy basically had some sort of discount on boards, or they sent him a little board package. It was never...
He wasn't making a living skateboarding.
Nothing more than legend. So there wasn't a lot of I never saw it as this is going to get me. I just really looked at it I was so stoked that I had something I was really, 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 really pumped about and passionate about, and it didn't require 30 people to play the game. It was I could take off and go down the road and just be by myself, and I
something
love
you
that.
Could pick up solo and actually go out and enjoy yourself on your own. You
were your own kind of guide or gauge in terms of how well you were doing. If you wanted to progress, cool. If you just want to carve, do that. Yeah. It was perfect. Perfect for me.
That's all through high school. You're skating. Now, are you playing in bands in high school? Do you ever form a band?
Yes, I actually did, and it was really, really rad. So you got I want to say sophomore year, end of freshman year of high school, sophomore year of high school. I had some older guys in my drafting class, and this one guy actually exposed me to like Pennywise self-titled album was the first like fast stuff I heard. And I remember completely hating it the first time I heard it because it was like it broke something. You're like, no,
it didn't make any sense
to you. Too fast. It was the drums, like just something. I was like I was scared of it or something, and within a couple of weeks that definitely faded. And I ended up asking my buddy to burn this tape. Now this coincidentally happened with a few different people around me in high school that all had been exposed to different. My exposure was at early Pennywise. Another guy heard some Bad Religion really early. Another guy heard No Effects, and I ended up getting together with these guys, and we started a band called Outspoken, which was and it's kind of a skate punk band. Yeah, absolutely. You took those influences, and jumped right into it. Learned how to play fast. We wrote all of our own songs, and we would do like 1 to 2 covers. We would end the sets with Bro Hymn because that was, that was the biggest song on any of those records. It was an instant crowd favorite all the time. Anybody could sing along. Yeah, I remember seeing that song performed in high school at functions. But it was a blast. I had I was able to, like, we made a demo tape, which I still have. It was transferred from cassette, and it's amazing to listen to those songs. I really, really love and cherish those. I wish we could have like actually recorded something clean. We did. So you guys are just playing at high school, or are you guys playing shows outside? Playing, basically, like our existence there was we had one guy in the band that ended up turning 18, so he could go to because there's no real venues that are going to take us. We would go to like the VFW hall in the next town over, and hey, we want to rent this for like a so you'd have to set up night. The show. We'd have to set up the show. They weren't looking for punk bands. No, they were definitely not. There was a battle of the bands we played that actually, that was, I guess, technically a show that was put on that we went to, and we played a house party show as well. But, the other stuff that we did, the real memorable stuff that I still like have video and, documented footage of was literally one guy that's old enough goes and like fronts the whole image that we're gonna, and these are a bunch of underage kids were drinking. Like it was not a place that a venue they shouldn't have had us there. But at the time, that's how we pulled it off. We made our own scene, and there is video that exists from way back then. Yep, I actually posted some stuff on Facebook a while back. A lot of people are older and moved on and have families now, and probably haven't experienced that in a long, long time, and it was really special to be able to share that for a bunch of friends. Oh yeah, to see that stuff from the high school days, and so glad we had a camera. Yeah, so glad that we were. I had one friend with a digital camera through high school, and he took pictures at everywhere we went. Yep. And he documented it all. And a few years ago, he put up like 1,000 pictures from like our whole high school. And I was like, wow, man, nobody else had a digital camera. You didn't have the cell phone in your pocket at that time, with the camera. So you end up graduating in what year? I graduated in 97. So 97, and then you've got a taste that you've got to get to California. Skateboarding is going on there. The weather in Michigan probably doesn't really work for trying to skate year round. Not at all. You're buried in snow, and you don't. And there's not. I didn't have a hookup. My town is so small that there wasn't like we just didn't have a hookup in the winter. The best I had one winter was a buddy of mine's parents were doctors and kind of well off, and they had a giant unfinished basement with, maybe 40 feet of concrete down there, just enough to get one push one direction, turn around, come back. And I cherished that. You lived there all winter. Other than that, you dreamt about the thaw when you could actually, physically get out there every day and start actually getting your tricks back. And I realized in high school, again, watching these skate videos and just envious of, this mecca on the West Coast of stuff to skate, like the best looking stuff. And it seemed like the people, were way more prone to be really stoked about skateboarding versus like get off my property. You would see that too. But growing up where I was, I think we were looked down upon instantaneously when somebody showed up. Like it was instant. It's like, oh, skateboarders. If you're on a skateboard, you were up to no good. You're causing trouble. You're gonna break the curbs. You're gonna break something. You're gonna destroy our concrete roads. Exactly. We got to get you off those. So when do you end up getting out to California? You graduate 98, 99. Yep. I got done with high school in 97, and a buddy of mine that was a year older had actually his mom and dad got divorced, and his dad had pulled him and his bro, they moved out to Lodi. So 98, I want to, I wanted to do like animation and get into video, but I wasn't. My dad and I weren't really seeing eye to eye. Like he wasn't really thinking that was a viable thing that I could do and make a living at. His
video, a career in video production.
Like, I don't get it. Computer animation. I don't. He wasn't on the same page, and rightfully so. Like I was a shithead at the time. I don't think that.
And it was new technology.
Yeah, everything was. It was like, are you going to work at the TV station? Like, where are you?
Yeah, if you weren't working for the local news, he didn't understand it.
So I had a drive that was definitely there to try and do something more careerized with video. But being younger, I was really all about being really, really stoked about skateboarding and just kind of chasing this dream of being able to go to California and just be part of it out here. I didn't, you dream of going pro and having someone see you and seeing something in you. Like I had that as a dream, but I also just was like, I just want to get out there,
And
I just
see what that is.
I want to like see the ocean, I just want to not worry about shoveling snow every day in the winter. So
you end up in Lodi,
yep.
which is as far from the ocean as you can get.
Crazy. I don't know any better. I just was super stoked again that, it was really, really different out there, but it was a nice exposure. We definitely got to go.
Now, is it on property? Is it like a Central Valley? Is it a suburb home?
It was a neighborhood, like it was like in a neighborhood with a ton of different houses and tons of cars on the streets and people walking by and stuff.
And you hit there in the summer and it's hot.
Yep, super hot. I mean, that was
100 degrees every day.
But understand that hot here compared to where I grew up, like hot in Michigan, when you add in the humidity, you want to pull like 90 degrees in Michigan with 95% humidity is an entirely different. It affects how you breathe. It's debilitating. I came out here
and the dry heat.
And the dry heat was like, oh my God, like I'm sweating bullets out here physically moving around because it's 90 out, but it was a different type of, like, I felt like I had more stamina and I could breathe better.
Due to being in Michigan and that super humid
from
heat.
Coming from like the wetlands, basically,
So you're out here in Lodi and you guys are skating around, you're filming stuff. Do you meet a pack of skaters out there? Do you meet people that are into punk? I mean, who's the people out there in Lodi?
Like out in Lodi, the clique was basically who I would be introduced to through my buddy who had already moved out there.
And he knew people right away?
He knew some folks locally, but he was a pretty fresh transplant as well. I mean, he'd only been in the town maybe a year, if not less. He had a good buddy that was a local guy, a guy named Matt, really, really cool guy who, again, grew up in the area. So through Matt, you had basically the social pipeline was connected. And I didn't meet this Matt guy was playing music, but it was terrible. Like I went over when I was actually here in the 90s. I went
check out his band.
I went to like the music house, and it was a really older guy that was just basically trying to be the manager, and everybody in the band was really bad. And it was like, I looked at it and I went, okay, no, I'm going to just keep focusing on skateboarding. It didn't call to me at all. There wasn't a pull to get involved, at least not at that time.
It wasn't really a thriving music scene there at the Lodi Music House.
And to be honest with you, everybody there was, you're at that age where you're trying drugs and you're doing a bunch of stuff. And everybody there was really into, like, I got handed more like techno CDs out there. You know what I mean? It was just house stuff.
That's the early days. The rave parties are just getting rolling.
That was, I feel like I was getting handed that more than check out this new NoFX. At that point, we definitely, like me and my buddy, definitely were listening to punk stuff, but we didn't seek it out there. We weren't, I didn't go to any shows while I was out. It was, I was really just trying for that few months to just kind of get my feet on the ground and see whether I was going to move out here or. And
so you're stuck in Lodi how long before you go back to Michigan?
It was probably 3 months.
Okay, just a summer.
Yeah, it was, like you had really grandiose intentions, but I was super young and I don't know that I was really ready to leave the nest yet. I missed my mom and dad and my brother and
there was no work out there. You just kind of came and went.
I didn't get lucky in snagging. I was trying to find any type of anything job. I just didn't. Maybe things would have been different if I would have snagged something that would have given me a little bit of income. But it was, every few weeks I was having my mom Western Union me $100 to just
to get by,
a little bit more,
to have food.
Yeah, and it was, it was exciting to be out there again. But
so you end up back in Michigan. At this point, you go to Lansing.
Yep.
And you go to community college out there.
Yep. I moved back home, and kind of dinked around for a little bit and decided I had to get back out of, that little town and moved to Lansing. Essentially, I had dreams of going to Michigan State. The university just seemed really cool, and they had a film program. And when I actually did a little more research about the film program, it was film as theory, which was kind of disappointing because I really wanted to get camera gear and make stuff and really learn how to visually tell a story or convey messaging. And I didn't want to write papers about making movies, or I didn't want to write papers about the film. I wanted to make it. So LCC, which was Lansing Community College, had, at the time they were touting we're in the top 10 of video production labs. Digital cinema had just kind of come about, and people were starting to plug cameras into computers and versus pulling everything directly from a tape, from an analog source. And it was a really exciting...
So you get experience editing on some of their machines, using some heavier gear, some better cameras, and talking a lot there.
And you just have a lab, you can go and check this stuff out for the weekend. And, they give you everything you need. Your instruction manual's there. You figure it out.
And you take home every piece of equipment they'll let you.
Yeah, everything I could get my hands on. I got to work with some really, really cool gear for the time, and played the game well. I actually worked, the department is called M-Tech. I worked in the department there, and made friends with the guy that ran the whole shop. So we had, essentially carte blanche to take the stuff, go shoot some skate stuff, or if I wanted to make a little extra dough and shoot a wedding for a family member, I could take that stuff. And
you had access to all that.
Once I got done, the year after I was done with my 2 years of schooling there, I actually stayed on a little bit longer and worked at the lab, helping first year kids figure out how to digitize footage and, open up Premiere 4 or 3 or whatever the heck it was at the time. It was very early on for editing. It was very early Avid and
the best programs at the time.
And it was super cool, but I loved it.
So that ends your time out in Lansing. You get your AA at the community college. We're going to take a quick break and then get into you coming back to California, ending up in Martinez, California, where we have some common grounds there, and also talk about your involvement in the music scene and also what you end up doing with video there. We'll be right back with a little bit more with Aaron.
Such a foolish notion, and yet we apply ourselves with idealistic dreams, or so it seems. We all walk alone. I won't waste time trying to find out exactly what went right and what went wrong. Without regret, let's accept an objective beyond what we are. Still broken. Although perhaps serendipity has placed us on divergent paths. Content leaving our arguments are broken, yet the depth of blowing kisses, blowing smoke. Let's wash this from our hands, or into life with hearts left waiting. How let us make pretend with my true colors showing, and forever find comfort in silence, knowing that I won't waste time trying to find what went right and what went wrong. Without regret, let's accept an objective beyond what we are. I won't waste time trying to find out exactly what went right and what went wrong. Without regret, let's accept an objective beyond what we are. I'll admit what we are. Still broken.
All right, and we are back with our guest, Aaron Bruski, and we're going to talk a little bit about him getting back to California. And you end up in Martinez?
Yes.
And how does that come to be?
So I'm done with school. My wife is. I stuck around Michigan for a year after I got done with college, waiting for my girlfriend at the time. I was bringing her with. I convinced her to come with me out west, but I was.
She had never been to California.
Never been to California. She was graduating with a degree in animal neurobiology. Total science nerd, and I just was telling her everything and anything I could tell her about. Oh, you'll get such a grad job out there, and just the opportunities that you'll have out there.
They're endless.
Yeah, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue about myself, let alone her. But I knew that she's 100 times smarter than me, and that she would make it happen if she got out. So I'm waiting for her. We're going to make this move, and we eventually, we're constantly just looking for opportunities. I was looking on Craigslist in the Bay Area. It was actually I think Craigslist was pretty damn new at the time.
And you're looking for work in the video field.
Anything, just anything. What I wanted to do is, like, best case scenario, I could hit the ground out here with a gig. I have some income instantly coming in. That would have made me, it would have been the perfect setup. So I saw an ad that was video editor needed, which was, my preferred discipline was actually cutting the stuff at the time. And it was for Persian News Network. And it was a little TV station out of Martinez. And the guys wanted to do an interview with me. So I flew out to San Francisco and drove to Martinez and met this guy. And it was like, the channel was...
Is this a one-room operation?
Like 2 rooms maybe. But basically pretty much 1 and 2 towards the end of my stint there. The staff was 3 other guys that were Iranian guys, and then myself. 2 of the 3 other guys spoke just Farsi, so there was this weird. One of the guys was kind of the translator between me and the other guys, so it was a really, really gnarly environment. To just not speak the language. So I got offered this job, and I went out there, and it was an opportunity for us essentially to get set up and kind of start our lives.
Establish yourself here in California, in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and we drive 4 days pulling a U-Haul.
You load up everything you've got.
Everything we've got, between the 2 of us. Misha and I had lived together for just under a year before we'd left.
No plans to go back.
Yeah, just this is the push. Me and her and our cat, and we cruise across. The other awesome part of this deal was that there was going to be an apartment for us for a month that we could get set up. It was too perfect and too easy to not.
And that's through the PNN also?
Through the PNN. They were like, yeah, we have a loft above the studio. So we drive 4 days across country, get there. It's 2 a.m. It's dark. We show up to the apartment, and they neglect to tell us that one of the employees' fathers is living there. And it's a 60-some-year-old Muslim guy. And he's like, you guys can't stay together if you're not married. And he was very adamant.
He knows you're coming, though.
Yeah, he knew we were coming, but there was no preemptive heads up, So it was very dire,
So he's very traditional. He doesn't want you guys there if you're not married.
Yeah, so I slept out of the room that night, and she and the cat slept up in this other loft spot, and it was very dire. We were crying. We were really worried that this had all kind of folded in and that it wasn't going to work.
It wasn't looking pretty.
It was crappy.
So the PNN, the headquarters is at the old Chrysler building. Is that where it was at?
It was
on Ward. Or?
The headquarters was like Martinez downtown has this little fountain. Sorry, it's not a fountain. It's like a concrete area where they'll do the
events. Or
they've had the sledding.
Okay,
the
winter sleds.
It was right next to that, and it was some sort of old automotive storage building. They had a room that was going to be the studio, and they had another room that was like the quote unquote control room. That was, it was a bunch of guys that don't know construction. We barely knew video, and we're trying to build this stuff out. So, on top of doing the broadcast and doing basically placing the translated text over the Farsi. I was doing construction, building that stuff out, as well as doing stuff at the car dealerships the guy owned. So, I would show up and he wouldn't have video work.
The jack of all with these guys.
Go wash these cars. That's what I got for you today. So,
now, what kind of programming were they turning out? Just news, local news?
It was. They would essentially take. They would do their own broadcast that they shot when we eventually had a studio, but they were taking kind of rehashed Reuters feeds. that were in Farsi, translating them to English, and then kind of rebroadcasting them. And we would
as their own.
It was pretty bootleggy at the end of the day. It was like taking other news and stamping your text on it. But that was the guy was really passionate about his culture, and he wanted to have. I think he really wasn't happy flipping through the news and not seeing news that spoke to Iranians, and spoke to his folks. So it was really cool, I think, from his standpoint.
It was on local cable.
Yeah, it was something. I don't know exactly how you got this, but it was broadcast locally to people within the area, and there was enough of a demand that I know that he kept doing it after my few months stint there.
And this is in about 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
And so you land in Martinez, you find a job in video, maybe not the ideal job that you had thought was coming, but you're here.
Yep.
You're in the Bay Area. Now you end up playing music out of Martinez. Do you meet some people out there?
Yeah, I've always kind of like picked it up and put it down. It's just always been like on the back burner. And at this particular time, I had decided that I wanted to play some more. I'd met a couple of different people, just jammed with a couple of different folks. A guy named Jeff Yeager out in Martinez actually put a CD on my car because he saw I had a strung out sticker, and I just jammed with him a couple of times. Nothing really materialized. And I again, Craigslist ad, this metal, like kind of like Slipknot-y, like just really, really crazy metal band needed a drummer. And the ad was basically like, drummer needed, we have the drum kit, we have everything, you just got to show up and play.
Now, you didn't have a drum kit at the time?
I had nothing. I actually sold, I had bought a kit, brand new, non-used. It was a huge deal, and saved up a ton, and I sold my drums to the music store when I moved for college.
Okay.
So letting go of that was crushing. But this was an opportunity to be able to kind of sit down and be able to play, and I didn't have to.
And they've got the kit there for you.
It's an expensive price tag. Even to get crappy cymbals is hundreds of dollars, So it worked out nice. I was able to start playing again. The band, we recorded just I believe a demo and not a whole lot more, and played a few shows just locally around at different bars and stuff. But it was a nice,
super aggressive metal,
super aggressive, like the type of stuff that like. Just cook, just I would never listen to it after the shows. It was,
but it was a physical release, and
it absolutely was.
You're feeding your passion a little bit.
I got to meet some guys. Half the band they were a little nuts, and the other half of the band were some gentlemen that I met that I've ended up having a relationship with.
And that band was called Milgram.
The Milgram Massacre.
Massacre,
which I was told was some sort of experiment done on kids or people about basically. It was like media. It was like some sort of experiment about how like you'll follow what you're told to follow. Like the guy that came up with the name had this whole backstory that was really deep and impressive, but I don't remember.
If it was really
the backstory was cooler than the band, basically.
That does happen with some band names.
Totally.
So you're playing with Milgram Massacre. Now, how long does the job at the PNN last? How long are you there with Persian News Network?
PNN did not last very long. It was
a year or so? Or?
It wasn't. I want to say it was months. It was maybe a half year.
And does the station go under, or you bail on it?
Station doesn't go under. I bailed it. The environment was really, really toxic. The guy that ran the place would have just, his deal would he'd have separate meetings with all the employees, and he would sit them down and go, okay, I want you to tell me you're my guy. You tell me if anything else is going on. You're my guy.
Told you were the insider and wanted you to throw dirt on everyone.
Yeah, it was just it was an environment, like it got to the point where I was having trouble showing up ready to edit a video project, and had the guy tell me I was washing cars for the day. I was having problems with that because I went to school to do this, not to do that. So it got to a point where it had just ran its course. I am guilty in my life of. I don't think a whole lot when I emotionally react to something at times, and I was over that job. I really should have, in retrospect, maybe found something else, but I just was like... But
you left with nothing. Nothing was in the oven. You were gone.
I just walked. It was like, I'm going to hit the ground running tomorrow and look on Craigslist and grab the newspaper, and I'll go work at McDonald's if I have to, but I had to get out of there. So I got out of there, and I subsequently... I bounced around a little bit and worked. I sold sandwiches for a catering company. Drove around Concord and Walnut Creek and went to different businesses and dropped sandwiches off.
Outside of the PNN, where did you guys end up living?
Well, we lived in Martinez for years after PNN because my wife was actually working. She was working for a biotech company out in Vacaville, so she was at her commute wasn't that insane.
It was 30 minutes or something.
Yeah, and I actually got a job with Rossmore, the retirement community out in Walnut Creek.
Wow.
They actually have a giant
beautiful
TV
town
station.
of Rossmore.
Yes.
So you started working for Rossmore TV.
Yeah, so I was working for an old folks home TV station. I literally working live bingo. Like it was the coolest.
That was the dream come true.
It was the dream come true. They had the best part of that, other than just keeping a video job and having a paycheck from making video, was like for all the kind of like funny and wackiness of working at an old folks home, like they would do musical guests, and it was nobody famous, but it was every week was a different from every corner of the globe. Like one week I watched like a Chinese sitar performance, and the next week was country.
And you would film it.
And I would set up a couple of cameras and just basically shoot it so the residents that couldn't see it would be able to watch it on their channel. But it was able to expose me to just a bunch of set the stuff up. It took 5 minutes to get ready, and then I would sit there and watch an hour's worth of a concert of something.
Was there a full day's work?
Yeah, it was.
At the Rossmore TV station?
I worked. It started part-time, but moved into, I instantly had some value there. So I was working 4 days a week, and it was like a 9 to 5, unless I had to go shoot an event, which was later. You'd go there later that night, work like a shorter
And that was
shift.
a private TV station?
Yep. They still have it to this day.
And it only exists inside that small town.
Yep.
Wow, interesting.
I mean, the commercials, there was an old lady that did a haunted house we had to make a commercial for. And she was like, come to my house. It was like so cool. But also very sad, because, I mean, I'm not joking when I say this. Like, there were residents that were 100 plus years old. You would lose people every week. My wife was getting sick of me because I was obsessed with your egg.
All the people you'd met.
Yeah, it was just like, this Len guy was rad. He used to give me salmon from Alaska, and now he's gone.
He's no longer with us.
You're just so used to these personalities all the time that I think that was the only downside. I was thinking about death a lot, and being old and just that part of it. So
it was right in front of you at that time.
But good job though.
So you're over there at the Rossmore TV station playing metal.
Yeah.
And where does kind of the punk rock start? I know that we meet you in about 2010 with the band Advocate.
Yep. Yeah, in between then, like punk rock was always like, it was exactly what I wanted to do. I close my eyes and I go, what's the perfect fit for me? It just wasn't. I wasn't finding, with not really knowing a whole lot of people in the area other than some guys, and some younger kids I knew at the skate park. I wasn't going to shows. I didn't really have a social circle. So, until I literally bumped into some folks, that actually had some connections to punk rock, I don't think anything was going to happen for me. I ended up meeting some guys that were working for Amp Magazine, and one of the guys from Amp actually was kind of doing a side project, and he had asked me if I wanted to help out with it. He had got rid of the guy's name was John. He'd got rid of the drummer and the bass player for his band, and he was filling those positions.
And did you meet him through skating or through video?
I met him actually. He had heard through the grapevine and reached out to me to help out. At the time, Amp Magazine was trying to kind of switch to more of a video platform from being primarily print, and I was doing different band interviews with Brett, and I was also doing them with this guy named John who had the band. And through doing video stuff with Amp, I was able to kind of start meeting some folks that were actually doing this, and they were doing something that I wanted to be part of, versus the metal band was like, I'll take it. And then this was like,
just to
yes,
be in a band.
yeah, this was perfect. So John had me, he had me join, and we practiced for about 2 months, and played one show at Gilman, and then we broke up. But it was an awesome run. It was a really,
you met a lot
really
of people through that time.
Totally did.
So the metal bands, that falls apart. You end up getting out of that. You meet this new crew that's kind of the Amp Magazine folks down in Martinez. I think I was probably living in Martinez at the time also, and meeting you down there.
Yep.
You kind of get involved in that. Where is skating at this point?
It's when I was set up in Martinez, like I got really, really lucky.
Was there parks out there?
It was the perfect setup for me because we lived off Castro Street, which was a couple blocks down the street from the police station in Martinez. skate park was in the other end of town, but the town is just a few blocks. So I could leave my house after work, park the car, hop on my board, skate to the skate park. By the time I get to the skate park, I am warmed up from pushing all the way there, and then just go and have a blast. And the park is really, really rad in Martinez. It's a mix of street and primarily transition, but
that's down there at the marina.
Yep,
that one.
But,
okay.
So it was a perfect. I loved the downtown aspect of being able to just kind of leave and skate to the park or walk to the Ferry Street Tavern was really cool. Like there's just a bunch of little bars we could walk to.
Yeah, there was live music down there at the time.
Stumble back from. Yeah, but skating was always there, and I had a little kind of half-ass sponsorship going on from a company called Bus Skateboards that was based out of Martinez and Danville.
And they had a little brick and mortar there. They had a little store. Had
a little shop, and the guy and his wife they were ambitious too. They had they made their own boards. They had a couple of really, really good kid rippers that were, just amazing kids that they were sponsoring and kind of sending to different events and stuff. And I got to go and be part of shooting as well as witnessing the Damn Am contest back then when it was first initially starting, which was really, really cool.
And that was all hooked through that skateboarding company?
That was through the Bus Skateboards hookups. And it was also, I was able to just get free boards for the first time ever in my life. It wasn't a 15% off discount. It was, I would show up and he'd give me a stack of the shape deck that I liked that they manufactured, and it
get your size and throw you a stack of boards.
And as crazy as it would, the board, the actual model that I rode for a couple of years was they actually did a little deal with Swingin' Utters and made a Swingin' Utters skateboard, and the bottom said Swinging Utters by Bus Skateboards, and it was a perfect shape deck.
And they handed you a box of those, and you'd never been happier as a skateboarder.
It was perfect. That's a huge bill. If you're breaking those, especially in my prime.
Now, did you hold on to any of those boards?
I absolutely did. I have one of each. They had a couple different pro models that I liked. The Utters board I still have, and then he actually, way back when nobody else was doing it, he had an old school shaped board, big tail, no nose, and I still have that one too.
That's really cool.
I used to have them all on the wall, and my wife and I made a deal to not have skateboards on every wall, so I've got them somewhere. That's a deal you
make as you grow up sometimes.
You absolutely do. This is nice, but it's all you.
Yeah, not so many skateboards on the wall anymore.
Totally.
So you guys, you said you meet John down at Ant Magazine, who a great songwriter.
Yep.
I really wish he was still performing more. Check those guys out. Advocate has one demo out, I think, that came out with Death to False Hope.
Yep.
Is that who released that? And there's really some good songs.
Amazing songs.
There. Yeah, great songwriter. And we caught the show at Gilman.
Yep.
We saw you play there.
Yeah.
That's kind of when we all met you, met Aaron here. So we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about the band he gets into, Shadow Lakes, with Jamie, which will then bring us right up to time with Dearly Divided. They got a new album coming out on Felony Records. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the beginning of that band when we are back with Aaron.
I'm not sure what it is we think we need. We sleep with these loaded guns, and all of us are guilty of shooting before we think. I've channeled all this anger as my anthem. I haven't let this fire die down in days, and still I haven't seen a single answer in the
All right, and we are back with our guest, Aaron Bruski. We're talking a little bit about him getting more involved in the punk scene here in the Bay Area, and kind of the inception of Dearly Divided as a band before that, Shadow Lakes, which was you and lead singer Jamie.
Yes. We
how does that come to be?
After I was done with that metal band in Martinez, Milgram Massacre, one of the guys from the band, a younger kid that played guitar, was just a shredder. Him and I had stayed in contact, and he'd reached out to me with another guy who was playing bass, and they'd written some songs, and they were very, punk, because they knew that that's what I wanted to do. I had made that clear that I wanted to get away from...
Still riffy stuff.
Yeah, I want to play fast, and I want to get away from, metal, just fully metal stuff. So the songs were... They were very, again, I'm not comparing myself, but I feel like they were strung outy, death by stereo, kind of just nuts. We just had a bunch of
super fast parts,
lots of tappy stuff, lots of just really
stop
thrashy stuff.
And...
We had and some really terrible lyrically written songs. They were mostly just parts, and then there were a couple songs that the guitar guys brought that were like the lyrics were just terrible. Like one song was like called "I Will Kill You." It was just the worst, and it was
that was the only lyric throughout the song.
It was basically the only lyric throughout the song. So we, I think we had the musical end of it. We had the prowess in terms of like us and myself and the strings. The songs were just bad.
But you're starting to play the kind of music you like.
Yeah, it made me very, very happy to be able to kind of, I always call it like run and stretching my legs, and I can play a full speed punk song. That to me is, I think everything around me slows down, and I feel super comfortable.
Just in your element at that point.
It's the perfect cadence for music for me. So we were doing that. We didn't have a lead singer, and the guitar guys together trying to sing, it was a joke as a three-piece for us. So we auditioned anybody and everybody for about 6 months. I mean, literally, there was a guy that was delivering a package that had a mohawk that we pulled into the studio.
And he said, hey,
you look the part. Try to sing this, We tried a bunch of stuff.
So no prerequisites needed. At this point.
At that point, it was like, if you can do it and you're not hating what we would send you, So we got a response to our ad on Craigslist from a guy, and this was Jamie, and he took the parts that we had. I'll call it a song for the sake of argument.
So you send him these parts.
Yeah, we meet up. He's interested in it. I sent him a couple of files, and what blew my mind was that and just set him apart from every other audition we'd had was, he didn't just email back saying, yeah, cool, I'll be there. He took the digital file and he chopped it up. He moved, he doubled parts, he moved parts around, and he kind of reworked the song and made it.
Composed the song.
He composed the song. It would have never been that on our own. That would have not, and not only did he do that, he added what he thought would be appropriate vocals to a major portion of it. Sent that back to us. I mean, we were instantly floored.
And everyone
just like, holy
dropped.
shit, let's not blow this,
he shows his work ethic at that point.
Yep.
So like, this guy's serious.
He came in and we introduced himself, and we were just kind of getting a little basic kind of bio stuff out of the way, and he lets me know that he's a Michigan dude too, and I just instantly.
You guys are both born in Michigan.
Yeah. We had that was a really special. I think when you're a transplant far away to another place, as comfortable as I am with all the awesome people here in California, there's still you see somebody from back,
a party that's
you're
there.
like, hey man, it's just a little connection we've got where we came from, and Jamie has that, and I.
And so you had the hometown warmth almost to you.
It was an instant connection, and I knew pretty quickly that as long as he would have us, I'll do what I can do to be around this guy, because it was rad. And even Jamie will tell you, if you ask him, like those infant songs that we wrote in Shadow Lakes, like he'll tell you he's 100 times better. But to us at the time,
that was as good as it got.
He was 1,000 times better than us for him being still kind of early on in his process. We were just like, dude, holy cow.
Yeah, thank you for
so glad.
helping this to what it is. So Shadow Lakes does record an album and,
Yep.
and a demo, and that stuff is available on iTunes.
Yep.
If anyone wants to check that
Yep.
out, some early Jamie songs.
Yep. Special thanks to Nick Shively for making my drums in time.
That's
'cause they
recorded at
definitely
your,
weren't.
your Rhythmic Studio, you said, right?
Totally. We recorded both of them there with him. The first album or EP was recorded when he was in his garage, still at his dad's place, and then the second one was at the studio at OMC.
Very
And
cool.
that worked out good for us.
So that stuff is all available, and Shadow Lakes just slows down as a band at some point.
Yep.
And then there's a year or two between that and Dearly Divided.
Yeah, but the Shadow Lake stuff, motivation kind of like started slipping. I just don't think it was there necessarily. And Jamie had some changes in his life. He had a child coming, and I think he was ready to hang it up for a little bit.
Take a break.
So that's what we did. We stayed in contact, but we just kind of ceased to produce music for a little bit. And there wasn't Jamie and I didn't make a deal that we were going to get back together. It was just like, I wasn't going to complain.
For now,
or
this
poke
is
him.
stopping.
He says he's going to take a break. I'll wait.
Yeah. And so this is around 2011, 2012.
Yep.
Shadow Lakes kind of comes to an end. Jamie's having some life changes, exciting changes for him. And for you, you're not at Rossmore anymore.
No.
You've found a better career kind of in the city.
Yep.
And what companies are those with?
It worked out really good. I got a job initially like as a video editor and producer for a really nice production house in Redwood City. So I was commuting from Martinez to Redwood City, which is brutal both ways. I mean, we're talking an hour and 40 minutes, 2 hours each way. It was brutal. My wife got a different job as well too, so she was going to South City. We both had been working on the Peninsula area, and it was literally just time to move there for us, just because the commute was dreadful. And being in that area, kind of meeting different clients that trickled in from Silicon Valley as well as from San Francisco, I was able to make some connections, and I got in subsequently with a company in Silicon Valley. And from there, it's, I think it's like any other position where you play your cards right and you make good relationships, and
stuff starts moving along.
People will look out for you.
And there's a ton of startups out there, still
Absolutely.
is. And there's a ton of opportunity out there. So you guys move out there, you land a better gig.
Yep.
As far as career-wise.
So these things are, the good. I've always wanted to have this duality of like paying my bills and being comfortable out here, which isn't the easiest thing to do.
Yeah,
as
the Bay
well
Area,
as as well as have this kind of music thing. And we were getting to a point where we were getting comfortable, and it was really nice because, we're scraping by for a long time out here before it started being a little better.
So you relocate, and about that time, a year or two later, is when Jamie calls you back and says he's ready to get back, get things going again.
Yep. I don't exactly remember the exact words, but he had contacted me, and it was basically like, hey, I've been writing some stuff, like, let's do old guy punk. And it was just his way of saying, like,
you guys both knew what that meant.
Yeah, we're not doing speed metal. It's going to be more like a face-to-face. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's going to be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more refined and just less spazzy and spastic. And, that's what he was trying to say.
Some more singer-songwriter type
Totally.
songs
And just prettier everything. And I was picking up what he was laying down. So I was super excited about it.
So that's the inception of Dearly Divided, which you
Yep.
can check out. All their stuff is available. They got a new album coming out. But Dearly Divided kind of forms inside of Oakland at the Oakland Music Complex.
Yep.
And you were saying I actually came and watched you guys rehearse when you were up in
Yep.
the attic of a studio space. Brett at the time says, hey, you got to come check these guys out. And I think me and Sean
Yep.
cruised over and we rolled up, and we had known you. And I
Yep.
think that was our first time meeting Jamie and Brian at the time. And you guys played a couple songs, and we're like, hey, man, I don't know what the hell they're doing up there in that attic, but yeah, they
Yep.
sound pretty good.
It was nice. It was really a nice, the relationship we had with Nick Shively doing the Shadow Lake stuff. It was so cool that we, just as luck would have it, when Jamie and I were ready to do something, it's like, okay, I didn't have the free practice space anymore on my end. Jamie didn't have options for, anywhere where we could play on his end. So the OMC was a nice middle ground for us.
It was central to both you guys.
And it worked out good that Nick needed someone to help pay the rent for the studio. So we took that little attic spot, with an ear-to-ear smile. It was great to have a spot to make some noise.
And you've got songs right away with Jamie and Brian.
Yep.
And shortly thereafter, running into Brett, you said at a show, he kind of says, hey.
Yeah, I saw Brett at the show and kind of like, I had done video work with him for Ant Magazine, and, I had a relationship with him, but it wasn't a musical relationship at all. It was more like, I need you to come do video for me.
He had recently played in Why I Hate. You said you had done some
and I was doing video work for his band Why I Hate, which is cool. He just, I was telling him about what it was and what I'd put together, and he was like, you know what, I think... just very nonchalantly, it was like, maybe I'll go check it out. Maybe I'll play bass for you guys. I think I might do that. And I was like, okay.
As only Brett would.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, in traditional Matthews style, just a couple seconds of thought and just, you know what? I think this is what we're going to do.
I'm going to show up.
And it was rad because he showed up, and he didn't show up and say, how do I play these songs? The first thing he wanted to do was watch us and listen to us. And it was one of the best things that we ever heard as a band. I believe to this day is, at the time there was 4 songs that Brian had written, which were very kind of Dropkick Murphys, very, I think, almost kind of sing along,
boots to the ground.
Yeah, type. And then Jamie's style was pretty different, which I would put more into like a really kind of more refined, like a no use or face to face, like. At least that's where I was.
2 different songwriting styles here inside the room.
We played our set, and Brett was like, well, I'm hearing 2 different bands here. What band do we want to be, essentially? And it was something that
clicked with everyone.
It clicked with everyone, and we had never thought about really asking that question. That's why it was just so special that he did. And to Brian's credit, I knew pretty instantly. I didn't really have to have the discussion. I knew Jamie was going to be very adamant about doing the music he was writing. And Brian, to his credit,
problem.
Yeah, he just said okay. Like he loved the songs that he'd crafted, but he was cool, kind of tossing those to the side and hopping on, the Dearly Divided train in terms of how Jamie wanted to write, and it started from there, and we really, really meshed well.
And that takes right off into the first shows, which were around 2013, early 2013, and then are those first songs? Or is that some of what's included in the self-titled album?
Yep, yeah, everything. There was no
throwaways.
There was no throwaways. Every single thing we made went somewhere.
That's good, though.
But yeah, but super cool. And it's you listen to. I love what the band has amalgamated into from what we started. I think the next album it's like the best case scenario for someone that like loves the band and loves what you heard on the last one, but you want to hear we got a little better. We got a little more creative. We got a little more dynamic in how we craft songs. We put a little more thought into it. It's less just kind of natural and maybe like throwing curveballs at each other.
The self-titled album, which you can find on Bandcamp, is out on iTunes also.
Yep.
And you guys have CDs formatted that. That's on 45th Parallel Records.
Yep.
That came out 2014. And after that, there was some changes in the band again. You guys found a new guitar player in Aaron.
Yep.
And began recording right away with So Much for New Beginnings.
Yep. That was the recording process was really, really special. That was
where's that recorded at?
We recorded So Much for New Beginnings at Motor, which was
wow.
Yeah, which was just
now the self-titled album is recorded at New Tone.
That was at New Tone, yep.
With Scott.
Yep.
And Ben.
Scott and Ben both put that together.
And that was mixed by Michael Rosen.
Yep.
So that must have been pretty cool.
The whole experience with those guys at New Tone was rad too. First time I ever met Willie Samuels too. Actually tuned all my drums.
Great engineer.
Rad guy too. Making fun of me about my Axis pedals, which I thought was kind of cool.
I love the just the feeling at New Tone.
Yeah,
those guys are all really smart, and what they've done with it over the years and changing it to what Scott has it now is just great studio.
I mean, the definition of I would say, if I was doing something, I would have 110% trust with those guys to hand them something I've recorded to kind of add their polish
and to make it better,
have it be as good as it can possibly
Everybody
be.
I've seen walk in there comes out sounding better.
No question about it.
So that album is great. I love your guys' self-titled album. I think there's a lot of great songs on it. And when I heard there was another album coming, I was stoked. I was excited. And so the second album you guys record at Motor.
Yeah, so...
whose engineers that?
We had Josh Garcia. I would say engineer as well as a producer. He helped us with a lot of calls that we had to make, which was actually
had some
cool.
good input.
Yeah, and the experiences. New Tone was different than Motor. New Tone was cool. It's they kind of have the bomb shelter there where everything goes on. Motor was it was like punk rock, like summer camp. Like when you walk in that hallway and you're seeing all these albums on either side of the wall that you grew up listening to. There's just
that were recorded in these rooms.
You're like, wow, you feel the fact that you're making noise in these same halls, it feels really, really special. So that, having just...
That was probably a dream come true.
It was rad in every sense of the word. I think as an experience, being able to go there and work on our songs, and one time Jamie showed up to do vocals, and Fat Mike was already there, so he had to do a meet and greet with the surprise, like, oh, he's here, but which was really, really special and cool, and I think just kind of adds to like.
It makes you step it up a little bit,
surrounded
right?
by these kind of badass entities, you just want to go for it even more.
Yeah.
You feel like you're even more motivated to knock something out.
The best in yourself and in your product.
And I got to say again, Josh, like, he is a patient and gentle wizard. Like, I'm not fun when I track stuff. I become, especially with drums.
You get serious.
You get really serious, and I am the hardest on myself, harder than anyone else in the room, and I'm pissed off at myself.
You hear something wrong with every
exactly.
take.
And he was just, it was rad to have him be like, hey guy, just take a breath. It's just like this demon over there in the booth. But the experience was rad. It's we've been sitting on it for a while. We were shopping it around for a long time, which is. I'm also the most impatient human on earth, so I wanted to get this out instantly.
You've been grinding your teeth the whole time.
So we understand the perception issue, and we understand that signing and kind of taking that next step is something we wanted to do. But you couple that with being crazy impatient and wanting to show everyone what you made. It's
hard to keep that thing locked up.
Totally hard, but I did it.
So you guys have found a home on Felony Records,
yep.
which homes a couple of our friends, the Lucky Ejits,
yep.
Sick Waiting.
Yep.
They've all put out records with those guys.
Yep.
Seems like they're doing a lot of great stuff. I'm stoked that they're putting out the record for you guys. Excited to see it. What kind of formats is it going to come out in?
Well, it'll come out on CD.
Is there a release date?
The release date will be mid, like I'm going to say 15th or 16th, mid next month.
Of August.
Yeah.
So we're just a couple weeks out.
We're pretty dang close. We'll do CD and vinyl of the new one, and then we're going to press a super limited amount of vinyl for the old one. Because I've wanted to do that since we made it, essentially. And it's tough when it's something we get asked about at damn near every show.
Yeah, where's the record?
Yeah, and it's like, gosh darn it, like I wish I had that to give you, So really, really exciting. That I'm stoked to have those other formats finally, kind of come to fruition. And I think us being on Felony is the perfect fit for us.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similar sounding bands,
yep.
and a good home for those kind of traditional skate punk sounding bands.
And they're just like every other aspect of punk rock, this kind of attainable. Ron and Chris aren't some guys in an office I've never met. You know what I mean? Like, they're not just some folks.
They're very hands-on, from what I hear.
Ron's
with all
been
their
on
bands.
my couch sleeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've got a relationship with the guys.
They're real people.
Yeah, it's super, super cool. And I think it's a perfect fit. I'm really excited about. I'm excited about hitching our wagon to these guys and the opportunities that we'll get as a result.
I think a lot more is to come to kind of bring both together with your career in video production and also in music. You end up doing a lot of the editing and filming for the Fat Wreck documentary that was put out.
Yeah, I got super, super lucky that when that was getting thrown together. Sean and the guys at Open-Ended Films had contacted me because he had kind of heard through the grapevine that I did this for a job, and it was really cool to be kind of the Bay Area NorCal guy to reach out to.
With so many of the bands being from out here.
Yeah, and then, the interview footage being able to shoot was really, really fun. I got to shoot the Fat 25th that entire day in San Francisco.
You did aerial views of that, right, with
the
drone?
Did a bunch of drone photography of the Fat offices and then, just the Bay Area in general. It was a really, really cool kind of clash of a lot of things I really love to do. I mean, the music as well as the video aspect.
And behind the scenes.
As well as just, I think, getting to meet a bunch of these folks that, I maybe wouldn't have met just from, going to the Fat store openings every once in a while or going to shows. Like, getting to meet a lot of the behind the scenes folks and a lot of the guys that actually work at Fat. It was really, really cool. The neatest thing that I got to do, as aside from the interviews, was, there's so much B-roll. There are so many different music videos, as well as just
they must just have a vault of.
Yeah, I was able to go to Fat, and they gave me 4 boxes of of tapes from the late 80s, early 90s until now. And
all on VHS.
It was every format. I mean, there were CDs there were early CD-ROMs, there were Australian PAL format tapes. I mean, it was like a what's what of formats over the last few years. And I digitized every single piece of that footage and got to see, their history that they've collected. And it was insanely special. I have all those.
I'm sure very few people have ever seen all that footage.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
It might be only you.
Yeah, very well may be. I definitely gave Fat a hard drive once we were done of all of that, so they could, if they ever wanted to share it. They've got it now. But I think about that too. I've got to drive myself with all the stuff I pulled, and every once in a while I'll take a look at it. It's just like, man, I don't know if this is even this out.
What an incredible amount of stuff.
It was very special, though. I mean. Lots of tedious work running through all that footage, but man, I had an ear-to-ear smile the whole time.
Yeah, and that's fully released now. Anybody that hasn't seen it should definitely check it out. I really enjoyed it. I think that the final product was great.
Turned out really cool.
It told a great story about it. A record label that we both love, and I'm sure all our listeners can appreciate. That's available, I know, on Amazon, iTunes. Yep. You can kind of find that anywhere. So the new Dearly Divided record coming out next month. You guys got shows coming up. You said there might be something in Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz, the 22nd. A little bit of a venue snafu right now. They're figuring out. I think it'll be at the Atrium at the Catalyst.
And then you'll probably see some more touring coming up once this record is released.
Yeah, we're trying to. We're kind of waiting to the last minute, of course, but we're trying to put together a CD release show. We're just trying to coordinate that with the actual physical CDs showing up, so we're not having a CD release without being able to sell CDs.
Just telling them you'll send it in the mail or something.
It's coming. We promise.
Throughout the scene, enjoying all the different people that are part of it. As you grow older in it, how do you see it evolving? How do you see your maybe ideas on the scene changing? As you get a little older, is that stuff changing with you?
Yeah, I think, it's like so weird to be like, I'm old. I mean, I'm pushing 40. Like, I mean, I'm not the oldest, but it's just weird when you
it just happens.
You
right?
don't see yourself, necessarily the number that you are. But I think as I've got years under my belt, kind of doing this around here, and I think the biggest thing for me that I've struggled with is I think like. To really, really keep it fun and keep, if your mantra is about having fun and keeping this musical project about enjoyment, like I think you mentally will be in an amazing place.
And be able to last a lot longer than some.
The times when I've been the most stressed out about my band and the scene, it's when I've been worrying about, what everybody else is doing. And I've been worrying about opportunities that someone else got, or I'm worried about trying to break into like, I want to play with these guys, so I got to get into their social clique, and I hope they like me, and what if they think I'm a dork or I'm too old, or like what if they don't like, it's like those are the times when I take a breath and I go, man, you're a 40-year-old dude and you're worried about this stuff. Like,
this stuff doesn't really matter.
It doesn't, focus on having fun, focus on seeing new bands and playing music. If guys are shitheads, then avoid them.
So be
it's that simple, Like you stick with the genuine folks and folks that
focus on writing your songs, and having fun inside your group.
Yeah,
and I really think that it speaks volumes, and everybody should listen in.
Yeah, it's a way to. I think it's a way to continue to have a ton of fun, and like we had talked about this a little earlier. Like none of this stuff is paying the bills at the end of the day, so you got to do this and have it enrich you and not make your life worse.
Yeah, you need to take true enjoyment out of each step.
If you're
out of each rehearsal, every Saturday and Sunday morning getting up, or every Friday night going out there, you really have to find something in it that goes, hey, this is really what I want to do. I'm able to do it, which I'm thankful for, and to do it with people that you're so close with, and I mean the friendships that you can get along the way through this.
Some of the best.
Yeah,
we were talking about bands a little earlier that some of the Felony bands. We went down to SoCal a couple of summers ago, and the friends that I made of this band, Skipjack in particular, seriously, some of my best buds that I talk to daily. I'm so fortunate for,
and it just pops up out of nowhere.
And it just pops up out of nowhere. You're going through, you play a show, you make a connection with some other drummer, and some of you guys are talking about gear every day. You know what I mean? And just everything else in between. I'm really, really fortunate with. I'm fortunate for the relationships that this scene and this passion that we all have has given me. It's awesome.
I completely agree with you on that. I want to thank you for coming out. I think we could go another hour or two,
yes,
talking.
Yes, we could.
I really love talking with you, man. I'm excited about the Dearly Divided record. I'm excited for everything that's to come for you guys. Any final words, man? I really want to thank you for coming out here.
I appreciate you having me, Ryan, and I just want to say thanks again.
Right on.
That's all I got.
To all our listeners, we want to thank you. Check out Dearly Divided's new album, So Much for New Beginnings, be out soon on Felony Records. And you can find Aaron behind the camera, behind the drum kit, somewhere out here in the Bay Area. Thank you guys again for listening. We'll be back next time.
November blowing like a sudden storm, and I don't really know how we found ourselves in the fields, cursing the seeds that we have sown. We heard the whispers of the coming rain, and we fell like leaves, left our hearts devoid of everything except this question: is it enough just be fine? We could go round and round, but we both made up our minds. And I don't feel the same as you, I never will. And I know you know it. November rolled out like a foggy dream, illusions burned away. That's in our tongue, loosened enough for things with